adjust the collars, make sure we're
Yeah,
good.
gotta make sure we're good. Am I good over here? Am I collar straight?
There we go. You look fabulous, my man.
All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Awesome,
Appreciate it.
awesome.
All
All
right.
right, welcome back. This is Mortgage Better with Mike.Bott. I've got special guest Clennon Hughes here again.
Clennon Hughes, your number one Northern California realtor, your favorite guy. Back at it.
Back at it. I love it. And I appreciate you guys joining in and watching us. This is great information if you're just stepping foot into the market. It's also great information if you haven't bought a home in the last couple of years, because we kind of go over everything and try to touch on as much as possible so that you're informed. So I've got a couple of notes here to get us started today. And last week we focused really on buying on the buyer side,
Right.
where the buyers have the leverage
Right.
against the sellers. Like the sellers are the big bad evil person.
Right.
But this week we kind of want to focus on the sellers,
Absolutely.
because even though on one side they may be looked at as the big bad evil person, on the seller side they may be up against a wall. So I want to kind of tackle that, look at what options they have available, and I think it's a great idea because, hey, it's great to focus on buyers, but sellers have to have a place to live, and they need to get out of that house to buy that new place, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a few like that right now.
Awesome. So when I'm typically dealing with a buyer and negotiating, I always refer them back to you as the realtor. I hate mispronouncing that, but realtor.
Because everybody does realtor, and it's
Relator.
like realtor. But you actually got it right, so,
So
kudos.
as a realtor, your main jobs are to negotiate with either the seller, if they're selling it themselves, or the seller's agent, so that way we can come to consensus and have a good deal. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, like you said, basically I have to bring everybody together. And, of course, any interaction with any other person, whether it's a spouse, a friend, family, whatever, no two people are going to agree 100% on anything, right? We know how that goes.
Don't tell me everybody has a different personality.
Crazy news flash, people are different, right?
Yep.
So, and everybody has their own agenda, and my job is basically to bridge the gap.
Good.
So
I like that.
if the seller wants one thing, the buyer wants one thing, if they're off, my thing is to get them in line and connect them and get it done. Because ultimately, everybody has their own goal. Everybody has something they want to get done.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same philosophy I take into negotiations with other agents.
Okay.
I always tell other agents, whenever we get in a contract, I have a brief conversation. It's like, hey, look, I know that technically we're on opposite sides of the table. The reality is we should be working as a team.
Yes.
You have a goal. I have a goal. Your goal is to take care of your client, get them what they want. My goal is to take care of my client and get them what they want, and for both of us to get paid. So let's work together as a unit, figure out what we can do, protect your client, protect my client, get us as much of what we want as possible, and get it done. I find that takes away the adversarial approach to working and negotiating, and we get things done because there is an incentive. There's an understanding that, hey, as long as you're willing to work with me, I'll work with you.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good way to approach the table, as not as we're looking at everybody else as the enemy. You walk onto, let's use a car dealership. Everyone has purchased a car from a car dealership, and if you haven't, you might be dreading the fact that you may have to someday.
Right.
But as you're jumping onto that lot, you see all the salespeople there. You almost look at them as enemies. And I was a former car salesman, before this, and people are very standoffish. They don't want to give you too much information. When in reality, it's our job to make it work for A, your budget, B, to make sure everybody wins or everybody loses. And I want to get to that in a second because, I heard a quote, and I want to make sure that I can, relay it the proper way. A fantastic or a good deal, a good negotiation on any contract, any sale, is where everybody feels like they had to give something up to make it go through. How accurate is that in home buying and selling?
That is 100% accurate. And it sounds bad to say, but honestly, if everyone feels like they had to give up something, because that's the thing, if everybody wants to feel like, oh, I got the upper hand and, I got one, it's like, no, it works better if everyone feels like they gave up a little something, but gained what they wanted overall.
Exactly. You want to come in and you want to get the best deal on a home. You want to come in and get the most you can for the home. So if you're up here and you want to be here, meeting in the middle is probably the best way to kind of summarize that. But at the same time, things pop up, and if you give a little and then the buyer gives a little, the seller and the buyer give a little bit, to find that happy medium, then the transaction is not going to feel great on
Right.
both sides or either side, one more than the other. But at that same time, everybody in that scenario gets what they want in the long run.
It's been my experience that even when you have more contentious deals and have sales going, and everybody's mad, your client's mad, the other people are mad. By the time it's all done, more often than not, people are happy.
Yeah.
They get the buyer, they get in their home and they're mad because, oh, they didn't fix that sink. But they get in there and they fix up, and you talk to them like a few weeks later. It's like, hey, how's it going? Oh, we love the place.
Good.
They're so happy. And the sellers, you get them out, it's like, oh, we're so glad we got done. You did such a great job.
Yes.
These usually say people that yelled and screamed and cursed at you the whole time. But when
Yeah.
it's done, it's like, oh my God, you did so great. We love you. And they refer you to their friends.
Yeah. Well, it's an emotional experience. If you're the seller, you're packing everything up and you're leaving the house that you stayed in so many. So you have a sentimental value there. And then as a buyer, you're leaving your comfort zone and getting into something that you know nothing about, like that home. We always recommend doing inspections.
Absolutely.
Roof, general home inspection.
Absolutely.
And just to make sure you know what you're getting into. There is very few circumstances I do not recommend inspections. And the main reason is because not everyone builds houses. Not everyone owns houses. Not everyone knows exactly what to look for. And a third-party view can get that little rose-colored glasses or skepticism out of somebody's eyes. So I always recommend that, just kind of as a side note. But okay, so tell me about these sellers that you're meeting with nowadays.
So sellers right now have gotten a little bit of a wake-up call in the sense that for the last 2 years, this has definitely been a seller's market. You've had multiple offers on homes. Well, now that the Fed has raised interest rates, not as many buyers in the market. Yeah. There are more houses on the market. Mm-hmm. Same thing we talked about last week, which are great from a buyer standpoint. From a seller's perspective, it's an adjustment. It's like, hey, you're no longer the big boss. You're going to have to kind of bring it down a little bit.
Take it off of 15, bring it back to like a 7 or 5.
Dial it down a little bit. Dial it down a little bit. But the good thing in that is that it makes the market more realistic now. So now sellers are more cooperative.
Yes.
Because before, there were times where, and I don't want to bash anybody, but, if I'm being honest, there were agents and sellers that were just really not being very cooperative, very rude. Mm-hmm. There are some great agents out there, but there were a few that, hey, I've got the power and I'm going to flex it.
Yeah.
They've become very friendly now. But the reality is the market has kind of adjusted a little bit. Sellers, some of them are starting to have this feeling that, hey, my house isn't going to sell because it's been on the market 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Whereas for the last 2 years, homes have sold within 4 days, 5 days. And I have to remind people that, this is not abnormal, and it's an education period, which is what we do. Yeah. In moments like this where people aren't certain, people who have experience and have training like Mike and I, this is where we come in and we educate, and we kind of put some of those fears and concerns to the side. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to make you feel like, oh, everything's great. I'm going to give it to you honestly, but you'll at least be fully informed.
So I got a question for you on that. If I'm meeting for a real estate agent, because who knows where our audience is coming from right now, and for some crazy reason they can't use you, Clennon. Just for some reason, let's hypothetical. Hypothetical. So if I'm meeting with, and I'm trying to sell my house, I've got to either relocate, downsize, or upsize my property, and those are my intentions. But I got to get out of this one to buy that house. If I'm meeting with an agent who I'm telling them 100% what to do, is that a good fit? Is that a good vibe where the real estate agent is just saying, oh, you're right. Oh, you're absolutely right. Is the customer, the seller, always right in that scenario?
No. And that's the biggest thing that I think, especially with newer agents, they don't want to offend their clients. Mm-hmm. They don't want to upset them, which is understandable. I used to be the same way. But the reality is, this is what we do. This is what we're trained in. We are, considered experts in our field. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to argue with my doctor.
Yeah.
If my doctor says I have this, I'm going to educate myself as best as possible, but at the end of the day, I'm going to defer to the expert.
I love that because, this is your lifeblood. You've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. While nobody is an expert in any field, crazy as it may sound,
Right.
but if you have someone who's got years of experience and a proven track record of closing deals and reading the market correctly, those are the persons that I want to have on my side that I can trust when I go to do this. Most sellers, they're probably buying and selling a home once every 5 to 7 years. So 5 to 7 years, that takes us back to 2017, where it's a completely different market.
Completely different.
Just because you've done it in the past doesn't necessarily mean that you know everything about it. And
Exactly.
it's our job to give forth that education, to give forth that knowledge that we can share. It's like, hey, this is what happened on my last deal, which was just a couple of weeks ago. I know that is a sample of what's out in the market, but it's a true, accurate, and much closer relevant sample that we can put forth to use on your sale.
Right.
So I love that fact that, hey, education is always, if you're not learning something every day, I'm gonna try to retract that a little bit.
No. I actually like it, but go ahead.
if you're not going to learn something every day and you're just going to be closed-minded, I think that's the improper way, because life is constantly changing. And I feel that if you're able to do the research, listen to the experts in the field, and tailor your thinking, because now it suddenly applies to you when you're in that selling cycle, I think that is probably the best way to come into it, is with an open mind, with the ability to absorb the education as we put forth.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we are constantly being trained. We're
Oh,
constantly
yeah.
being educated.
Absolutely.
So, of course, most people know that every 4 years we have to take courses to, continue education courses.
Wait a minute, it's every 4 years for you?
Every 4 years for us. What about you?
It's every year for us.
Well, I guess it's better to be a realtor in that sense. But
I should have got my DRE, damn it.
see, if you got your DRE, you come outside every 4 years. Yeah,
Dang
but
it.
we're constantly learning. We're constantly training. You know how this goes. Like, we're always taking a class
Yes.
or an online course or
Yeah.
a lunch and learn or something. We're constantly being educated because, like I said, even the experts can be wrong. But we have the advantage of having the most current data, the most current tactics and strategies to win. We understand that, especially with experience and training, we can kind of gauge things a little bit better. And the fact that we're constantly educating ourselves is key because, like I said, you always have to learn. Things are always changing. And information from, like right now, this market has shifted.
Yeah.
What worked 7 months ago is not working now. We're in October. Rewind 5 months. Go back to May. Totally different market.
Yeah.
And these things happen fast. And if you're not experienced and educated enough to see and adapt, you're going to find yourself in a hard time.
Well, you brought something up to me, and I can't recall if it was on the last video or not, but it was, a lot of these times it's smart to go back to the basics and don't forget those roots. You mentioned to me that you were part of a new hire class for real estate agents.
I am taking a new agent training right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Tundi Baker. Hey, Tundi.
Happy belated birthday. I saw yesterday.
Yes, belated happy birthday, Tundi.
Yes.
I forgot as well. She's going to kill me when I get to the office.
Oh, I saw her yesterday, and the first thing I said is, happy birthday.
She's awesome. So she's teaching this really great class,
Yeah.
this new training class for new agents.
Good.
And I'm taking it because even at 18 years in the business, sometimes it's good to go back to basics.
Well,
Because
and sorry to cut you off
No,
there,
no,
but
you're good.
in any line of works, there are some basic principles that we always stray from. And so long as we stay grounded on that foundation of those basic principles, it's going to allow us to build upon that. And if they weren't basic principles, they wouldn't work.
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
something's not working, we got to go back to the starting line, and restart, kind of reimagine it, and not stray as far next time.
Yeah, and especially for people who have been doing something for a while and you've been doing it fairly well, is that you start to develop habits.
Ooh, yeah.
And you pick up habits, you pick up these ideas, and sometimes, like you said, it's kind of like breaking a bone and not resetting it properly, and it heals messed up. You have to go back and re-break it to
yeah.
say it straight. So yeah,
sorry,
no. Maybe not the best analogy to use.
That's all right.
But that's the thing. It's like for me, it's like I have to constantly break these bad habits.
Yes,
and I've caught myself doing it plenty of times. And the good thing about educating myself and breaking my own bad habits is that when I encounter clients that, like you said, some who've done this a few times, it's easier for me to spot when they may not necessarily be aligned with the realities of the current market.
Yeah.
And they may have this mindset of, well, I did this 4 years ago. I did this, in 2012. And it's like, different market. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
We need to do something different. And I always tell them the same thing. It's like, hey, I'm constantly being educated.
That's what I'm doing.
So let me help you out and show you how this works, because you and I were discussing off camera earlier. A lot of times people will look at what's on the news. Oh, yeah. And they're taking it and they're like, well, this is what, X person said on, XYZ network.
Yep.
And it's like, well, that's true, but there are things that you aren't necessarily hearing. Mm-hmm. And you said something earlier. What did you say?
When it bleeds, it leads.
When it bleeds, it leads.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of times the doom and gloom and scary stuff is what sells newspapers. That's what sells headlines, which gets people to watch their programs. Mm-hmm. But there are also things that they're not being talked about.
Yes.
We talked last week about, the Smooth Start program with summer funding. This is something a lot of people aren't aware of. Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware of it until Mike educated me. Yep. Because as with most people, when I first saw what was coming with the rates, I got a little nervous too.
Yeah, I mean, to jump in those rates, you were thinking of a $3,000 payment. Now we're at $35,000. You're thinking about $35,000. Now we're at $4,200. So that all kind of comes into play. Okay, so next topic I wanted to do on the seller side was kind of like what should sellers expect when it comes to market value of their properties? And this is probably the toughest conversation that you have to come into contact or bring up with that education portion to the sellers, right?
This is the tricky question.
Yeah.
And right now, this is the hardest part of today's current market. Because again, just a few months ago, you have people going $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking. You've got 25 offers, and now you may get a few offers trickle in, after a few weeks. The reality is this is a different market. Like I said, with the interest rates have gone up, it's pushed a lot of buyers out. Mm-hmm. Less buyers, more inventory, more houses on the market, and the rates are scaring people. So this market is different, and so I have to set realities, because the first thing that a lot of sellers will say is, oh, well, my fill in the blank cousin, uncle, friend, whatever.
And sister's cousin.
Yeah, sister's cousin, boyfriends, veterinarian told them that my sister's uncle's cousin's boyfriend's veterinarian's assistant sold their house and they got so much money. It's like, they did.
Yeah, I bet you they did.
6 months ago when the market was different. The reality is this is a different market. You're not going to make as much money, but I can do the best I can and get you the best based on what the current market is. And that is one of the hardest conversations to have right now.
Yeah. Can I put you on the spot here for a second? I'm going to put you on the spot
with
some role playing.
Let's go.
All right. So I'm a seller. You're the agent that I'm interviewing to sell my property.
Okay.
Hey, Clennon, thanks for meeting me at my house today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, let me show you around. We show you around. Kind of. What do you think of the place?
It's crap. No.
I put a lot of money in this. Not starting off that good.
No, the house is wonderful. It looks great. I can see someone wanting to buy this. This is awesome. Yeah, you've done a good job.
Fantastic. You make some recommendations on staging. You may make some recommendations on repairs as we walk through it.
Little things here and there.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, what are you thinking that we could list the home for? Because on XYZ website here, and I emphasize the Z.
The Z, yes, definitely the Z.
It says it's worth about $650, and how accurate is that?
So, I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the thing about XYZ website. They're not in the market. What they're doing is they're looking at straight numbers. They're looking at data, which can be beneficial.
Okay.
It's great. However, I'm here. I'm in your house right now. Now we're looking at straight numbers. Okay, you have XYZ square footage. You have so many bedrooms. You have so many bathrooms. Apples to apples. I could take those numbers and say, okay, well, if this house over here, you know, in the same city sold for this much, then your house has the same dimensions. It'll sell for the same thing. They're not accounting for neighborhoods,
Right.
condition of the property, and desirability of the property,
Gotcha.
of the neighborhood. So, whereas on paper these look the same, the reality is they're totally different. You have the advantage of someone who's here, who can physically look, who knows the area, who works the area, who's active in the area, who's selling, who is, because they're active, noticing little small micro changes within the market, little things that these numbers won't tell you.
Gotcha.
Numbers don't tell the whole story.
Okay. So, and I was thinking, 650 would be great. It would be awesome. I'd be willing to go as low as 625. The neighbor's house right behind me, did you see it?
Awesome house.
Yeah.
Awesome house.
So they got a pool. They just redid it. Obviously, I don't have a pool. I've got a smaller lot. My kitchen wasn't redone since the 70s.
Right.
But I want that same dollar amount. How would you address that with the seller?
So I put them in the mindset of a buyer, right? Okay, Mr. Seller, your house is great. Your house is wonderful. I can sell it. I can get you the most money for it in this market. Step back for a second. You're a buyer. You have $650,000 to spend to buy a house. Yay. You look at this home. Look at this other home. Realistically, which one would you buy with your money? And what I find is that when I put the sellers and buyers in that, the sellers in that perspective of a buyer, they tend to understand.
That makes perfect sense because if my kitchen hasn't been redone since the 70s. I still have avocado green with glossy faux wood cabinets that has been worn for the past 40 years.
Oh man.
Or 50 years rather. Compared to the house behind me that's got all this like farmhouse decor, white and grays, neutral colors. And then I've got lime green in my kitchen.
They've got shiny new appliances.
Exactly. That all comes into play, and I assume that's a very common, realization that you have to bring to these sellers. Like, hey, man, they've got a pool. Now, pool can be add value, can subtract value from a property, depending on the buyer. Some do, some do not want it. I'm not going to get into that. But, when you have updated appliances, updated kitchens, kitchens and bathrooms, I always heard sell homes.
They do.
Because they're the most expensive to upgrade. Living room, family room, bedrooms, they're all just rooms. Carpet, closets, and paint. You can use to do those. But when you're talking a bathroom, you're talking plumbing, tile, anything along those lines, and especially kitchens, countertops, cabinets, flooring, appliances.
Yeah.
Those are all hot ticket, high dollar amounts. If I get into a home that's been remodeled in the last 5 years compared to something that hasn't been done in 50 years, that's at least for a rational seller would probably be a good way to, hey, A and B, which one would you buy?
And you said something just a second ago, which ties this all together, is that all this is important to the buyer. It's per buyer. What one buyer may love, another one may hate. I've had clients where I've taken them to look at homes, and I think we touched on this last week, where it's like I have to take myself out of it.
Yeah.
Because I walked in homes, it's like, ooh, this is terrible. They're gonna hate this. Let's move on, and they fall in love with it because they can see themselves in there. And then there've been other homes where I walked in like, oh my God, I love this.
Yes.
They're gonna love it, and they hate it.
Wow.
And so it comes down to the buyer. What did you say last week? The car sales quote. There's a.
Oh, can we say that?
I think we can get away with just one. Just one.
Okay, there's an ass for every seat.
There's an ass for every seat. That's it. And so it's the same thing with houses, right? It's like there's a buyer for every home.
Yes.
You just have to try to make it appeal to as many buyers as possible. But there's that one that's going to love it. And so pools, assets, liability, some like it, some don't. But anything else too. But the best thing, Mr. Seller, is to always try to get as many people, make it appeal to as many people as possible. Now, yes, you're going to have competition. You mentioned the house around the corner. You're going to have those competition. And you know what? You may not be able to compete with that house to get that price.
Right.
But we're going to get you the best price for your house.
I love it.
Just because you don't have the updated appliances, you don't have nothing, doesn't mean that I can't get you top dollar for this house. You may not get $650, we'll see what we can get based on the market, based on what you have here, based on what I see people are going to look at, because I've walked with enough buyers to know the things that they look for.
Mm-hmm.
You may need paint. You may need new appliances. You may need carpet.
Paint can work wonders when you're trying to do something to a house.
Paint can make such a difference.
Done right.
Done properly.
You want to get your lines good. That's why I hate painting, because those lines, trying to get those nice and straight, and then the walls crooked. It's like, oh, man, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. But those things make a difference.
They sure
you
do.
know, it's like you point these out to people, and so you're probably not going to get $650, but we'll get you something close. Whatever we get is going to be the best for what your home can do. It's no different than teach your kids how to play sports, or anything else. It's like, I'm not going to say you can't be the next Michael Jordan, but if you're not the next Michael Jordan, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. If you're Scottie Pippen, hey.
If you're putting forth 100%, that's all I ask.
That's all.
And if I'm going to do my best to get 100% of what your the value of your property is in comparison to the market and available options.
Absolutely.
Well, you completely passed that test. You did a fantastic job by taking me out of the driver's seat and putting me into someone else's driver's seat so that I can see the reality of the market.
And that's it. You look at it from a buyer's perspective. Mm-hmm. You get a real view of the reality of the market.
Yes.
And that's it. That's it. So I passed the test. It's almost as if I've been doing this for 18 years.
Almost.
Almost.
Okay. All right. 20-ish minutes.
Okay.
All right. So, and then the last thing that I wanted to do was doom and gloom is the next one. So
doom and gloom.
So we kind of all take it away.
So we kind of touched this a little bit earlier. I kind of jumped the gun, but I'm going to bring it back in.
Good.
So right now, the market has transitioned. Mm-hmm. We're kind of in some murky waters, only because things are changing. And in the midst of changing, nothing's certain. It's a little scary. But like I always tell people, change is scary, whether it's a good change or a bad change. Mm-hmm. 21 years ago, I moved to California. I have 2 relatives here. They're both in Southern California. Uh-huh. I knew nothing about where I was coming. I knew some people here, but I knew nothing about California outside of what I've seen on television, which does not apply to Stockton.
Well, Central Valley, where everyone, if you've never been here, definitely we're a lot closer to the ocean and all that other stuff. But the closest ocean here would be San Francisco, and it's not like bikinis and surfing. It's more or less like bodysuit and a jacket.
Right, exactly.
If you're getting in the water, you have got some good or some really numb senses.
Right. This is not Beverly Hillbillies, swimming pool movie stars.
Yeah.
So when I first got here, as I was leaving Alabama, it was a great opportunity. It was a great change for me. I was terrified.
I believe it.
I was terrified because this was a whole new thing. And that change was good. That change was one of the best things that happened to my life. So change is good. Regardless of whether change is good or bad, change is scary.
Yes.
Even if it's a good change. Right now, this market is changing. It's scary. You're hearing a lot of doom and gloom. Like I said, you're hearing on the news about interest rates. And, you got this shock value. What bleeds leads.
Bleeds leads.
So,
if it bleeds, it leads.
If it bleeds, it leads. So if you can sell the scariest things, that works, and that gets people to watch your programs and click on your websites and all this stuff. But the reality is, there are things that may not necessarily be. You're not getting the whole story.
Yeah. So and when it bleeds, it leads. The whole point of an article or a headline is to drag you in to read the article. And a lot of times, as you start reading it, it may not be exactly what's reflective on that headline, right?
Exactly.
So that's where we can kind of come in and, hey, I heard the other day, and you probably just, heard the teaser or read the headline. It's like, hey, I heard market interest rates were up at 8%. Well, yeah, maybe they were up market in that week, but this is a week later or it's a month later.
Right.
So let's show you your true options. Or I heard nobody's buying real estate, or it's completely stalled out.
Right.
It's like, well, we're still selling.
And it's that and it's perspective.
Yes.
So I remember it's probably around 2012. I was at a car wash one day, and there was a guy in there, and he's trying to sell me something, sell me on some kind of business opportunity. And so he comes up and he's like, he's telling me, I'm like, hey, you know what, I appreciate it, but I'm good at what I do. I'm in business for myself. I'm a realtor, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, well, how are home prices? Are they still terrible? And he leaned in on the terrible, like, are home prices still terrible? And I'm like, not for a buyer.
Yeah, I was going to say, in 2012,
yeah,
those prices are wonderful.
I'm like, those prices are great. I'm like, I'm like, hey, home prices are historically low. Interest rates are great. It's a great time to buy.
It's a wonderful time.
I'm on my way to go pick up a buyer now. Well, meet a buyer now to go show some homes. Yeah. And I actually was. And the look on his face just kind of I just took the wind out of his sail. But it was all about perspective. He's like, well, the prices are terrible. No, they're not. The prices are great. It's a great time to buy. Like, this is awesome. And that is how I present things to my clients. I don't paint a rosy picture, but I show them realities and I give them the right perspective. Like, hey, this may not be the news you want. This is what the current reality of the market is. Good. And this is how we can make this work to your advantage. Because my thing is, regardless of the situation, make the best out of it. Because if you need to sell right now, mm-hmm. you're not going to get what you would have gotten in January. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to get what you would have gotten in 2012 either. Right. So we'll make it best. So yeah, you may have missed the height of the market.
Yeah.
But you're nowhere near the low.
No.
So let's make the best of this. If you need to sell, go. Because the reality is, if you don't need to sell, maybe you don't want to sell right now,
maybe
and that's
hold
okay.
Hold off for a little bit.
Hold off a little bit and see what happens. Of course, with the unpredictability of the market, who knows? But if you're going to sell now, you're not getting $50,000 of asking, and that's okay. Because mm-hmm. the reality is that was a feeding frenzy that in part was pushed by artificially low rates and a bunch of other factors that you're not going to see. That was an anomaly. You're not going to see anything like that in a while. Current interest rates higher than what we're used to.
Yep.
Not terrible.
They're not terrible. They are still historically low, and a lot of people say, yeah, but the rates are historically low compared to the 80s, but the home prices are so much higher than they were in the 80s. Just like, yeah, well, and your income is a lot higher than it was in the 80s too.
Right.
So a lot of things have manifested, changed,
right.
And as we navigate this world, we've got to make sure that you got your priorities correct. Meaning, hey, if it makes sense to purchase, makes sense to sell, let's crunch those numbers.
Right.
And then you can go over your budget, see where it's at.
Right.
And then kind of move on from there. Because, again, the education part is where we like to start everything, to put everything out, and make everything work for our clients.
Absolutely. And you said something, I'm going to age myself right now. You're making more money. When I was 16, my first job was at a fast food restaurant, which will remain nameless. It is a chain that's popular in the South. Starts with a K. Anyway, my first job, minimum wage at that time, was $3.80.
So $3.80 you were paid.
Yeah, an hour. And so you've got people working at McDonald's now that are
mm-hmm.
making $18 an hour, $19 an hour. So yeah, you can complain about the houses cost more than $80, but you're making more money.
Yeah, and we're not going to go down that road where we think that that minimum wage needs to pay a living. I know there's way two different sides on each side of that fence. We're not going into that.
But
we're just using it as a basic, example of what it was to what it is now.
Exactly.
Because if you were in I'm sorry, what year did you say this was?
I didn't.
I know you didn't. I was trying to get you. So if
1991.
1991. I was 2. 2.5 maybe.
Ouch.
So in 1991, $3.85. If you were making $18 or $19 an hour back then, you were rolling it in.
Yeah, you were crushing it.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
So and that's the thing. So compared to, your income has adjusted for today's economy, but the rates are not crazy. I've seen them higher. The home prices, they're higher, but the home prices are adjusting. The bottom line is, if you need to buy a house right now, let's do what's advantageous for you. If you need to sell your home, if you, for whatever reason, need to sell, let's work to make it advantageous for you. No sense in looking at what could have been. Let's focus on now. Let's deal with the best thing we can do right now.
And it's all about goals, making that goal happen. If it's to relocate, to downsize because you're getting older, to get away from a 2-story, jump into a 2-story if your family is growing, or even getting some lands because you want to take care of some farm animals, something like that.
Right.
Okay, awesome. All right, so the last thing that I want to do is a last-minute surprise that I popped in on you. I found this really cool website that you type in a couple of keywords, and what it does is it brings up trending topics. So I just went ahead and did real estate on mine, so I can ask you some really hot topic real estate questions that are in the Google Cave, and then I printed one out as mortgage. So you can ask me a couple. So we only pick 4, and this is kind of how we're going to end it, and we're going to do some really quick answers just to have a little bit of fun with it as we end our second video together.
Yeah.
All right, you take it away, Clennon. Go first.
All right. Let's see. Are mortgage points worth it?
Yes and no. So mortgage points are what you pay for at closing to either bring down the interest rate to get a better interest. And, based on our last episode, the amount that you pay in points in this type of market when we have items such as a smooth start can not benefit you in the long run if you refinance early. So I want to stress that. But if you are in a situation where you're not going to be refinancing, nobody keeps their loan for 30 years. They just don't. They either pay it off early or sell it or refinance it. Then, sometimes it might be advantageous to save a couple $100 on your mortgage, pay a little bit in points. I like that question. All right, my question for you. Can real estate agents have tattoos?
Well, I'll answer that question. Yes and no. Yes, I am going to embarrass myself a little bit. I have 6 tattoos.
Okay. How's that embarrassing? What do they say?
Because I don't want people to know I have tattoos. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking.
I get it.
I have 6 tattoos. If I take this jacket off right now, I have on a short sleeve shirt, you'll never know I have tattoos. I don't have any visible tattoos anywhere. Now, this is the 21st century. Styles have changed. Tastes have changed. I'm a little more old school. I like to present more of an old school professional presence. That being said, I look like a rock star with my shirt off.
Nice.
But with my shirt on, you can't tell.
So you're all short sleeve, not the full sleeve, just short sleeve up.
Sleeve up, yeah. So nothing on my forearms, nothing on my neck. But, I would say being more old school, I wouldn't want visible tattoos. You definitely don't want to walk around looking like one of these young rappers who's got tattoos all on their face.
Yeah.
You don't want to look like Post Malone or Trippy Red or whoever these guys. I don't know.
Hey, and if you're a rapper and all, or some type of public figure, you've already made your millions.
Right.
For most people, I've never made $1 million before. I can't go out to look like that.
Yeah. No, I haven't made my first million yet. So, until... now maybe if I make a few million, I'll be like a 53-year-old rock star with tattoos and stuff. No. But yeah, so the answer to the question is, it's personal preference. I would recommend against having a bunch of visible tattoos. But even with that, there are exceptions. I do know some agents that have, cute little tattoos, and it just depends on your market, who you're working with. Because there are some agents that work with strictly younger clients, and they don't seem to mind.
I guess, and that was my example. If you get let's say you get an elderly couple or somebody who is scared of that kind of stuff for whatever reasons, I'm not going to dig into that, but you have the ability to scare off a deal. Yeah.
But if you're someplace like Southern California where you're dealing with a lot of that whole rock star Hollywood lifestyle, they don't mind. I know an agent that has tattoos all on his, he's got sleeves and he's got them everywhere. And he does very well for himself. Yeah. But he caters to a certain demographic.
And that's the thing. Sometimes you're going to be catering to that, but you're also going to be shutting out some deals.
Yeah, so it just depends.
I like it. All right, what do you got for me?
Can a mortgage lender have tattoos? No.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is a good one because this one is... there's no direct answer for it.
Okay.
Which mortgage is right for me?
Man, that's a loaded question.
It
So,
is absolutely a loaded question.
you know, if you're first-time home buyer, everyone wants the first-time home buyer's mortgage, and they think that's FHA, but FHA is actually open to everybody. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer to get FHA.
Right.
Great thing about that is they cater to, it's a federal government product. They want people to be in their own homes. Look, 3.5% down, and you get a decent rate. You know, you got mortgage insurance on there, which is not maybe a great thing.
Right.
Then let's say you're selling a home, you got 20 to 25% down. You know, then we can kind of jump into conventional, see if that's a good option, or even 10% down.
Right.
Let's say you're self-employed and you may be on your tax returns not showing either all the income or making write-offs. So you may not make enough on paper, then a bank statement loan might make some sense. Let's say you're buying a rental property, but you're in that same scenario. You can't show money on paper.
Right.
We can use a DSCR loan. So there's many different loan types and options available with many different structures and interest rates and down payments that can apply to everybody's individual intention and their goal to purchase a home. Love that question.
Right.
All right, so next one for you. When real estate deals fall through, what is the remediation? How do you tackle those?
Couple of fingers of Lagavulin scotch. No, what you do is, honestly, you just keep going.
Yeah.
You know, if you have clients that need something, if they need to buy or if they need to sell, you working something out, it doesn't work out great. I mean, it doesn't work out not so great, but you know what? We keep going.
Yeah.
You have an agenda. You need to sell your house. You need to be in Texas or Alabama or, you know, you've got to go.
That's got to be emotional, man.
It is emotional. It's hard for clients. It's hard for us.
Yes.
I this year alone, I've had two fall apart. Last year, I had 3 back to back in 3 different clients, and it was hard for them. But after that third one, I was ready to pull out my hair.
I see we're already there.
yeah. So it was rough.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're professionals. We have objectives. Our clients have to be taken care of.
Yes.
We have fiduciary responsibilities to take care of them. But for me, I love what I do.
Good.
It's personal for me, and I always tell my clients, on one hand, this is business, but when I hear their stories, and people have so many different reasons why they're buying, why they're selling, I internalize it.
Yes.
And because of that, I give my clients everything I've got.
Good.
And so for me, when something falls apart, I'm hurt, they're hurt.
Yeah.
I can't let them
The
see that I'm
lenders hurt too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in this together. We're all working for that same end goal. And, you know, if sometimes it's for the better. One of the deals,
Yeah.
foundation falling apart. Hey, this home is unlivable.
I remember that. I remember that was 2020, and they were crushed. They were so devastated. But the reality was that the foundation was crap.
Yeah, if you're going to get into this home, and I can't recall the exact loan details, but I know it had something to do with down payment assistance.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of money there. If
Right.
if it was somebody who had $150,000 to remediate those repairs and to purchase the home as is, I would feel a little bit better.
Right.
But in this scenario, it was a first-time home buyer. They're
Right.
putting all of their money, except
All
for
of
a
their
couple
money.
$1,000s, into this home. They needed something that was livable for at least a little while so they can plan for repairs, not something that's falling apart actively as we're closing.
Right, and they've got children, and all I could think was, my God, if something happens in that house and they're in there with their children, I never forgive myself.
Yep.
And so that was, good memory, by the way. That was a good one. But so, and I'm glad they walked away from that, and it was awesome. And they were hurt, but I explained to them the same thing. I'm showing them the pictures of what's underneath the house, and I'm like, hey, you don't want this problem. Like, I know you want this house, but honestly, if this goes sideways, like, this house will literally fall.
Yeah.
And you could literally find yourself under a pile of rubble.
We're in earthquake country. We don't need to be on
Definitely don't need to be on that.
What's that next question you got for me?
That's it. So when they fall apart, we push through. We get them going because we have to take care of them. This is what we do. Get knocked down, get back up.
That's what I like.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. How mortgage interest works.
That's a great question.
I got good ones for you, Mike.
That's
I got
awesome.
good ones.
That's awesome. So, mortgage interest, there is 2 terms, the rate and APR, and a lot of people get confused by those. So the APR stands for annual percentage rate. That's what you pay to get everything started, including that interest rate. So escrow fees are included in APR. Appraisal, because it's part of a loan, is included in APR. Or loan origination and points are included in the APR. So the APR is 9 times out of 10, or 100 times out of 10, higher than the actual interest rate. The interest rate is simply the rate you're paying to borrow the money, and that's what calculates the payment. So that's the difference between those two. And mortgages are simple interest, meaning you pay one interest rate. I take that back. Fixed rate mortgages are simple interest. ARM loans, we're not going to deal with those. We don't write a lot of those. But let's say its rate is 6%. You are going to be paying a fixed amount of interest through the life of that loan, but the one catch is that it's going to be amortized. And the amortization means like, hey, in the beginning, you're going to pay a set amount of interest because you owe the most amount on that money.
Right.
After you make that first payment, then you're going to owe a little bit less on principal, right? But the whole goal is to have a fixed payment throughout that 30-year term or until you get rid of it. So in the beginning, you're paying a lot of interest, and the principal is probably this much. As you go down, that table slides because as a loan amount comes down, you pay less interest on it, but so your principal amount of that payment goes higher. So about year 10 to 15, you're paying a little bit more principal. At year 15, it's about 50-50. And then as in your last 10 years of that loan, you're paying a lot more principal than interest, and you're paying that loan down quicker. So don't get dismotivated as you're making your first few years of payments because you're going to be paying a lot of interest. It's not an interest-only loan. It's just how an amortization table works.
And that's important because, I see a lot of misinformed people, misinformation on social media, unfortunately, and they're taking little bits and pieces of information that's correct, and they're mixing it with this pseudo-legal mumbo-jumbo. And it's like, I remember seeing something recently where it was like, amortization. The root word is mort, which means death, and they're basically trying to kill you. Like
that's one that popped up here.
Right.
Something like a death mortgage or something.
Yeah, death mortgage is like, okay, technically you're part right, but they're not killing you. You're killing the principal. You're killing the loan. It's like that's it. It's like, and I have a hard time explaining this to people because it's like, okay, so it's great that we have that we had a conversation.
Put the tin hat back on, just so you don't get it bounces away.
Exactly. It's like, oh my God, it's just crazy. So, so thank you for breaking that part down because that's awesome.
And I think that's all. Oh,
no, you got one more.
I got one more. All right, so this one can be long-winded. I want to keep it kind of shorter. But why is real estate a good investment?
Oh. Simple answer for you. Land, God ain't making no more of it.
You got a set amount of it.
There's only it's a very finite resource. People are going to always need it. People are always going to need a place to live. They're going to need a place to have a business, use it for agriculture, whatever it is. Land is finite, and there's always going to be needed. People will always need a place to stay. Yeah. And because it's a need and not a want, there's always going to be value in it.
Good. I like that.
There's always going to be value in it.
One thing that always, kind of boggles my mind is, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but, you see all these people driving around in fancy cars, and the difference between buying a fancy car and a piece of real estate is that car has a lifespan attached to it, whether Absolutely. It be 20 years if you take care of it, 3 months if you get in a car accident.
Right.
And it's also a depreciating asset, meaning it's going to lose value as you accrue miles.
Right.
Whereas a home actually can appreciate in value, which
Absolutely.
We've seen the last couple of years, last
Absolutely.
10 years since the collapse. And it's always going to be worth something. And the same can be said for a vehicle, but, at some point it's going to be scrap.
Yeah, I mean, unless you got some kind of classic car but the amount of money you have to put into it.
Yes.
To get that value, it's like, and you're talking, 40, 50 years down the line, it's like, that's not.
So you're telling me if I buy a Honda Civic today.
Hey, man.
Park it in my garage on stilts so the tires don't go bad. In 50 years, it's going to be
2072, that thing's going to be worth a lot. All you got to do is wait till 2072, man. That's it.
That's all?
That's it.
It's going to be a great return on my investment.
That's it. So, last question for you. Oh, wait.
I think that was 4 because you went first.
I did. Did I ask you how mortgage points work?
Mortgage points work? Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, we're done.
I think we're done.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, Clennon, I appreciate you making it in again.
This is our second one.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Second one of many. And I want to say thank you to you as well for visiting the page, taking a listen, even if you didn't make it this far. I truly appreciate it. Welcome back to Mortgage Better with Mike.Bott. And again, this is Clennon Hughes, our special guest.
Your favorite #1 California realtor. You can catch me at HughesSellsCA.com.
Come on.
Yeah, that's it.
What's the handle? What's the handle? I love the handle.
So I was going to try You Can't Lose with Clennon Hughes.
Gotcha.
I want to try a different one this time.
All right.
Because I'm testing these out for you guys.
Let's do it.
All right.
Comment below. Tell us what you like better.
Tell us what you like about it. You want to, you'll have, okay, I won't say, give me a second. I want to work this right.
You're good.
Get a huge advantage with the Hughes advantage.
Nice. I love it. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you making it in. Thank you, Clennon Hughes.
Man, it's awesome to be here, Mike. Thank you so much, my friend.
This has been great. Awesome.
All right.
Perfect.